What's up, guys? I have decided that this is the official 7th podcast because it's been 7 weeks. We did skip a week, but so we're calling it episode 7 because I like that. It keeps track of how many weeks we've also been doing it. So welcome back to the Lit or Last Inning Touchdown podcast. We are on YouTube, Twitter, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and a couple other that I can never remember their names because I've never heard of them, but we're on there. You can find us on quite a few podcast locations. This one will be in those same locations. So thank you guys so much for supporting us on our new platforms as we started Spotify last week. But we will continue uploading to YouTube. Spotify, I can usually get the videos up or the audio up before I can get the video on YouTube. So Spotify usually has the podcast on there first. Just a little insider tip for you, but I'm here with my buddy Logan doing it again, the podcast about MLB, NFL, and Overwatch League. We will get started with Major League Baseball as always. So just the quick rundown of some of the things that have happened more recently. Adam Eaton signs with the White Sox for 1 year, $7 million with a $8.5 million club option for 22. The Royals signed Carlos Santana for 2 years, 17.5. Giants sign Matt Whistler. The Rangers trade for Lance Lynn. And the Reds traded Iglesias to the Angels.
Quick correction: the White Sox traded for Lance Lynn.
That's absolutely what I meant. But the Rangers traded Lance Lynn.
They traded Lance Lynn to the White Sox.
Yeah, that's what I meant. So, some interesting moves there. I don't necessarily care about the Adam Eaton. I mean, he's a solid little player, but
makes no sense.
Yeah, I'm not 100. I don't really understand it. But
a team that can score more than anything, but they can't pitch.
Lance Lynn, I kind of like that.
Huge. I love it.
I like it a lot. I like it. That's kind of like a sneaky deal there. And honestly, after seeing what they gave up,
couldn't go any better.
After seeing what they gave up, which I felt like wasn't very much. My first thought was, why are more people not going after Lance Lynn? I mean, I'm actually a little shocked that like Lance Lynn was that available and nobody, like it wasn't a more, sought after piece because he's been a horse. I mean,
I'm like the chairman of the Lance Lynn fan club. When he was in St. Louis, I used to argue with my friends back in the day if Lance Lynn was a great number 2. And then after looking at the stats for a while when he was in St. Louis, he wasn't a good number 2. He was an ace. He was an ace that just so happened to be the number 2 behind Waino on the staff. And he was like the top 13 pitcher in baseball or something for years. And then he went to the Yankees, shaved his beard, and was terrible. And then because you have to shave your beard in New York, but he was terrible. Sonny Gray did the same thing. He went to New York, didn't shave his beard, but went to New York and was terrible. I don't know why. Maybe it's the expectations, but
I think something too is that American League East has small ballparks.
Oh yeah,
and
Lance Lynn
offenses.
And Sonny Gray are huge fastball guys. Lance Lynn, I believe, is the highest fastball rate among any starter, and he's had that. He throws a ton of innings. He throws FU fastballs all day. All he throws is, I'm going to challenge with fastballs, and it's going to be hard to hit me. And it clearly has worked because he's done a really good job for years. I'm like I said, the chairman of the Lance Lynn fan club. I love the trade. I got a good friend at work who's a big White Sox fan, so I've been following the White Sox more than I ever have. I think a lot of people are because they're also really good right now.
They're an interesting team.
And so I think their starters are done. Lucas Giolito, Dallas Keuchel, and Lance Lynn are that's 3 guys. Dallas Keuchel at a 1.99. Lucas Giolito threw a no-hitter and threw 6 no-hit innings in his playoff debut and just had a good year as a whole. I'm a big fan of the White Sox. Everyone's a big fan of the White Sox. You should be a big fan of the White Sox. If you don't like the White Sox because you're in their division or whatever, every other team should be watching them. They're fun to watch. You got Tim Anderson, Luis Robert are just absolute freaks to watch. Jose Abreu is the best guy to hit with runners on base in baseball the last couple of years. It's just fun baseball to watch. They now have 3 solid starters. They lost their best bullpen guy, but they just got a bullpen guy. Forgot who it was, and apparently they are by far the favorite for Liam Hendricks because they need more bullpen guys because they can score with the best and they can't pitch at all. So.
Yeah, I love this trade. I mean,
everybody should.
Lance Lynn he's a stud. I know he did struggle in Texas, but I mean it's Texas. I don't know.
He didn't struggle in Texas.
He did. Didn't he struggle his first year though?
Maybe I know his last 2 years. I believe he finished top 5 in Cy Young both years. I feel
like his first year was rough for him. I'm looking it up real quick here.
I don't know. I just remember the last 2 years, even in 2019, his stats weren't that crazy. But I guess his WAR was off the charts. Everything was off the charts. There's a lot of just screw you fastballs. I'm a huge Lance Lynn fan.
Okay. I'm thinking of his Minnesota days
Minnesota.
I was thinking right after he left St. Louis. I forgot that he had Minnesota in there. For some reason, I was thinking he went right to Texas, but that's right. He went Minnesota, New York. So, yeah, he struggled that little couple.
I am fearful of their catching situation. And this sounds crazy because everyone thinks Yasmani Grandal. I'm the head of the Lance Lynn fan club. I'm like the head of the Yasmani Grandal hate club. I think he's drastically overrated. He's a very good baseball player, but they have him projected as a 5+ WAR this year. I don't understand that. His defense just seems very questionable at times. He doesn't seem to know how to block a ball that's in the dirt at all. And then he just misses balls. Doesn't make any sense. He had the worst postseason ever for the Dodgers and then followed it up with a really bad post. When I say worst postseason ever, I mean, I believe it was up there with the worst catching postseasons ever because he allowed an unbelievable amount of pass balls and wild pitches and he batted sub 100 or something. Maybe I'm over exaggerating, but he was really bad. And that's why, and then the Dodgers let him go to Milwaukee and now he's there. And I fear for that because they let James McCann go. And the reason why I don't people might be underestimating that is James McCann was Lucas Giolito's personal catcher. Lucas Giolito, when caught by Grandal, his ERA is in the 8s. When caught by McCann, I believe it's sub 2. So you just lost your ace's personal catcher, which I know you can't have a catcher on your roster all the time for being a personal catcher.
John Lester did.
What?
John Lester did.
Yeah, I know that's true, but not every team's willing to sacrifice that, and the White Sox aren't as rich as the Cubs. We all know that. But it was, it's interesting. I like what the White Sox are doing, though. I can't imagine what they would be if they didn't trade Fernando Tatis. Yeah, I can't believe they wouldn't trade
reuniting
Lance. I still can't believe they traded Fernando Tatis Jr. for James Shields. By the way,
that's rough.
It's crazy. But yeah, Lance Lynn, Tony La Russa, random fact, 2011 World Series, Game 7, La Russa goes to Lynn out of the pen, and when Lynn gets to the mound, Tony La Russa walks, hands him the ball, walks back to the dugout and goes, why did Lance Lynn run to the mound? Because he actually didn't want Lynn in the game, but their phone was broken in the dugout, and they had to have an out. They had to have a unnamed player run from the dugout to the bullpen, forgot who he was supposed to warm up, told him Lance Lynn, and Lynn K'd the side. Every other outing in the postseason, Lance Lynn allowed a run.
Wow.
Including in Game 6. And then, the guy calls the wrong name, so La Russa runs out there, says he wants the righty, and out comes Lance Lynn, and that's not who La Russa warmed up.
Oh, no.
He didn't tell him that until later. And then Lance Lynn turned out to be an obviously incredibly solid pitcher because that was 2011, his rookie year. And we're about to go in 2021. So he's been in the league a long time.
Yeah. So
I've ranted there for a while.
No, you're all good. The other trade that I think is interesting, and it kind of goes on that topic that we were talking about, for the last couple of weeks, is what the hell are the Reds doing? And they have now traded their closer. So yeah. I mean, it seems as though that the Reds are dismantling this team. The other thing that's interesting about dismantling teams. So
who do you get traded to?
The Angels.
Big time.
Yeah.
Big time move by the Angels.
Yeah, the Angels look like they want to do that.
They
always do look like that. But
Raisel Iglesias is a super stud. That guy's
I just think it's
him.
Interesting that the Reds are they're taking it all apart. I mean, they built it and they're already taking it apart. And it's kind of just
They're like 500.
The conversation right now too is like, how far are the Indians going to go with taking apart their team? You're hearing all these rumors about their people, and I just wonder, like, teams like the Reds and the Indians, is this we built a team we couldn't sustain, or is it we built a team and COVID really hurt us because we built a team at the wrong time?
I think the Reds are a part of the COVID. The Indians have been good for a long time.
Right.
Because of just that god tier pitching staff that they've had with the Klubers, the Bowers, the
But
Beavers.
Now there's these rumors that they're getting rid of just about everybody. There's rumors that the Indians are going to get rid of everybody now.
Exactly. If they get rid of everybody, though, that's fine because they've only been bad. Like, then they'll start being bad for a couple of years. The Reds have a consistent let's be bad type of team. So
right.
I think the Reds started saying, let's go for this. And then all of a sudden they went, well, of course, the year we go for it and start spending money and then hopefully bring in all that extra revenue from extra seats sold and everything, no one could go to the freaking games, and it cost us just so much money, and now we have to end it all.
Yeah, it's interesting to me because you look at the Reds and you think, man, you're still going into the season with Sonny Gray and Luis Castillo. Like, that's 1-2 punch. That's pretty good there. Wouldn't you think that you'd want to run with that? But I mean, we've heard the rumors of shopping Sonny Gray. They're obviously shipping off pieces as is. I mean, it's just interesting. It just felt like this team had more than 1 year potential, and they're just dismantling the whole thing. So I don't know exactly what's going on in that front office. I don't know if maybe there's something we don't know going on. Maybe financially they're struggling and it's not going well. Maybe they're looking at their team and saying, you know what, our team is not that great and our farm system's worse. I mean, I don't know. I don't know exactly what their mindset is with their franchise, but they're clearly not happy with what they see because they're taking it apart. And I mean, it's an interesting way to do it when I thought that they were a team that was ready to compete, but I guess not. I guess they're pumping the brakes, pulling it back, and gonna try again in a few years. I don't know. It's just weird because usually teams, when they have the pitching talent, like the Reds currently do or did, you would think that that's your time you're gonna put the pieces in place and make your attempt, is when your pitching talent is there, because pitching is so rare to be successful in the major leagues. So when you've got a couple guys that show you we can be successful in the major leagues, you say, let's get all the pieces in and let's go for it. And they seem to be saying, we got a couple pieces that can pitch, but maybe you want him. Maybe you want it, It's just, I don't know. It's just interesting.
Yeah, I've been very intrigued. The team that I'm most intrigued about that people aren't really talking about, and because of that exact factor, is the Washington Nationals. Because of the big time starting pitching and the loss of Rendon, the loss of Harper. So you're sitting here going, when are they going to do something? When are they going to make a move? Because they're paying their pitching a lot, right? But they freed up all that money. I mean, and they still have Trey Turner and Juan Soto. So it's like, when are they going to go get that third guy, that the extra guy that puts them right back at the NL East conversation? Because they have the starting pitching to do that. They tend to have an okay bullpen. I know they had a bad bullpen a couple years ago. I think the year before they won the series, and then it was actually really bad the year they won the series, but they got hot at the right time. So that's a team I'm interested in, is the Nationals. Are they going to do anything? Because after, getting outbid twice in a row, it's kind of embarrassing. They're trying to pull a Cardinals, I guess, and just lose all the bidding wars.
Well, and see, that's what's interesting too, is they do have that phenomenal pitching staff, obviously, and it's like it's so obvious to point the finger and say, look, you lost Bryce Harper, but then it's also like you arguably have a top 5 hitter still on that team. Juan Soto is easily top 5, and so it's like the team is still really close, but yet they were so bad last year, you feel like they're like done. Like, it's just crazy.
The bullpen's been bad for years.
It's like just weird.
The only reason they won the series is they got hot at the right time.
Yeah, you would think that though, like with bullpen, like honestly, like you can find arms. It's just like it just doesn't seem like they give you the vibe like a team that's rebuilding, but you look at their roster like you can win right now, and that's what's just odd.
They lost like 4 guys to COVID.
Right.
It's just a weird feel. Lost even like 2 guys, and they lost like big name guys.
And I think that like you saying you're interested in them. you're interested in them, which it makes sense because really, I mean, they're still a really solid team, but everyone's kind of counting them out because they were so rough last year. And it almost gives the Nationals this vibe like they're rebuilding, but really you look at the roster and like, no, you're not. They're not at all. But we're talking about it like they're not even a factor. I mean, people don't even mention them like they're not a factor.
Well, everyone's just talking about the Braves and Mets.
Yeah.
Because the Mets, because of Steve Cohen, not because they're good at baseball. But the Braves, because they're incredibly good at baseball. The Mets, because of the new ownership and them looking to spend a boatload of money. And people are talking about the Phillies and how terrible they are. But they made a big move today.
They did. They did.
A huge move today. And apparently, says a lot of people, Phillies prospects, any one of the top 30 in the former prospects, on the prospects for the Philadelphia Phillies, start packing your bags now because they're all about to get traded for players because apparently the guy they signed, Dave Dombrowski,
former Marlin,
likes to just go for it.
Well, but that's the thing is when you signed Harper and you signed the players they signed, they said we're going for it, and then it failed miserably.
Well, when you have no bullpen and no starting pitching,
yeah, I mean
your
they
only
just
starting
built the wrong
pitcher
stuff.
was a guy who came out of nowhere. Because Arrieta was terrible. Their other three guys were
and
horrible.
Everyone knew Arrieta wasn't good. That's the worst part is they signed a guy and it was like, dude, he was not going to be good. No one thought he was going to be good. But they gave him money like he was going to be good.
Chicago, but he's no longer that guy. And then their bullpen, can you name a single guy in that bullpen for the last couple of years? Because I can't.
Brad Lynch.
Exactly. I knew you were going to say Brad Lynch, like that dude was there from 2008. The reason why I knew that is because I almost said Papelbon, because didn't he play there for a second? Exactly. So I knew you were going to say Brad Lynch. So
on the note of teams that are a little bit, when you say teams are interesting, I don't know that this team is super interesting. There's nothing like mind-popping, holy cow, are they going to come out of nowhere interesting. But I do think it's interesting that the Royals have made 3 moves already this offseason. They're not huge, but they're making moves. First of all, the Royals don't make moves unless it's getting rid of players. And it's just interesting that in a slower-ish offseason, that they've kind of been right there in the middle. They signed Carlos Santana, they signed Mike Minor, and they signed Michael A. Taylor. Now, none of those are huge, eye-popping names, but in general, the fact that the Royals are bringing in players is just kind of interesting. I think it's interesting.
Well, Michael A. Taylor doesn't really matter at all. No. He's a guy that the Royals signed, just like how they signed Billy Hamilton. All 3 of these guys are getting traded in the first 3 months. Especially Carlos Santana. That guy will 100% be on a contender come the end of July. No chance. A guy who sees that many pitches
and with when Salvador Perez is a Marlin.
Exactly. Then that won't happen because Salvador Perez is the best catcher in baseball, and
he's going to look good.
Is about to sign a. God, I can't imagine how much he's going to sign. I don't understand how people think he's not the best.
So people don't think that he's not the best would be my argument, I guess.
Well, a lot of people just are all over Real Muto, and I think Salvi's literally just better in every single way, way, and I don't think it's
so that's an interesting way that can transition here. So the MLB announced their all 2020 MLB team. So it's basically kind of like the All-Star game, except it's 50% comes from a panel of experts, 50% comes from fan voting. And it's basically kind of like the All-Star game picks, but more whole season based, and obviously the experts say matters just as much as the voting. So the first team, they have a first team and second team, and I heard MLB Network kind of talking about this, and they kind of hope that, you know how when people go to become Hall of Famers, they say, oh, he's an 18-time All-Star or whatever. Well, they're kind of hoping that this all MLB team thing kind of becomes another merit of like, you were the best at your position for this season. So for the first team, all MLB, the catcher, Salvador Perez. First baseman, Freddie Freeman. Second baseman, DJ LeMahieu. Shortstop, Fernando Tatis. Third base, Manny Machado. Outfielders of Mookie Betts, Mike Trout, Juan Soto. DH of Marcelo Zuna. a pitching rotation of Shane Bieber, Trevor Bauer, Yu Darvish, Max Fried, Jacob deGrom, Liam Hendricks, and Nick Anderson. So that's the first team. Things that kind of stand. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm so happy that they're going to teams. The NBA has it right, and so does the NFL. And I don't even know what the NHL does. I'm not going to lie. You have to have these. The All-Star thing is cool. Obviously, we care, but you have to have these all teams. Like, it actually, in the NBA, affects their contracts because their awards go towards their contracts. So, like, if you become a second team all defense, his max contract is less than a guy with equal numbers who is a first team all defense because there's no bidding wars. It's like there's kind of bidding wars, but it's all like, oh, these are the accolades that you have won, which means you can earn this much money. And why Giannis can make, $55 million a year because he's won every, all defense, MVP, first team all NBA, all-star captain. So and don't get me wrong, I don't think that contract should go like that. But
I do think that
the teams.
On that same note, though, it is interesting, though, because if you think about it as far as contracts, this all team, the way they're doing it with a 50-50 split of fan votes and experts, basically what it's saying is not only do the experts think you're good, but the fans like you too because they had to vote for you to get in there. But I do think it's interesting because of that 50% fan voting and a little bit of that. I'm interested to see what you think about this one because there's a couple players on here that I think could be up in the air. So you did say that you like Salvador Perez better than JT Realmuto. I don't disagree. And Salvador Perez this year was absolutely nuts. He was quietly really good for the Royals this year. Not many people talked about it. Absolute stud. And he's a better defensive catcher than Realmuto. Not to mention Realmuto missed some time, was DH, different stuff like that. He wasn't catching every day like Salvador
Perez is the best defensive catcher in baseball.
Salvador Perez is nuts.
And he's been it when people were saying Yachty was still the best. I was sitting here as a Cardinal fan going, yeah, Yachty's the best. But in my mind going, yeah. We're just not going to talk about the guy we're not going to talk about the guy in the AL because both these guys are winning all the Gold Gloves, but we're just not going to mention Perez being better than Yachty, even though he is. And so especially because he's also in Missouri.
So I'm interested, what do you think of Fernando Tatis at shortstop? Because I think the kid's an absolute stud, and I think he played phenomenal this year. But is he the best shortstop in baseball? Was he the best shortstop in baseball in 2020?
I don't know. He was the talk of the world. He was the best player in the world for like 3 weeks. And he definitely fell off. I didn't look at all the stats. I know Corey Seager had an unbelievable season. I know Tatis, like I said, for 3 weeks of a 9-week season or 10-week season was the best player in the game.
There was a ton of hype around him. And that's kind of what
I was... Which is hilarious because like 5 years ago, you couldn't have said this. Shortstops are hot right now. Like they're used. Like 5 years ago, there weren't shortstops that could play.
Like damn son, you're hot.
Exactly, but there just weren't a lot of shortstops that could play like this well. And now the league is just littered with shortstops that are studs. That a guy like Dansby Swanson's like always overlooked because even though 5 years ago he would have been considered with what he does would have been considered a top shortstop in my opinion because shortstops seem to be down like 5 years ago.
Dansby Swanson was really solid. He's
I know.
He was one of those guys that like when he first came up and he just wasn't living up to expectations. You're like, man, dude, I want to like this guy. Why are you? You're just like, man, you're just not quite living up to anything, and maybe you're not as good as everyone thinks. And he is quietly becoming very good for the Braves.
You want to know when he grew up? The 2019 NLDS, and he hit like 650 against the Cardinals in the 8th spot. And absolutely just nuked them. I mean, and of those hits, he went like 3 for 3 in the 9th inning and stuff like that. Like he was insane.
So here is one thing though that
who are you saying is best shortstop in baseball? Because you asked me that question. I wasn't prepared for that question. I didn't have an answer.
I'm not disagreeing. I was just curious because Fernando Tatis is one of those guys that you could argue maybe wasn't the best shortstop. It's close. All of it is very close. But maybe that his hype got him in there. I mean, I don't know
I'm
all of the
super
metrics,
proud.
but I think the one thing is I think Tatis, I think the offensive numbers are all very close, but I think Tatis killed it defensively compared to a lot of other shortstops. And I think that that's where it got him that boat. But I could see, and I'm not saying I'm arguing that Tatis isn't a first team, but I think there could be an argument that he's not. And so that's why I was bringing it up to see what you would think.
As someone who's not the biggest fan of Manny Machado, I'm happy to see him first team because he was an absolute freak of nature and was not recognized enough because of his teammate, Fernando Tatis Jr. I'm happy to see they got the outfield right.
Stud in the field too.
I'm happy to see
all of those outfielders, tremendous hitters and tremendous fielders.
Yeah, all three of them are right.
Yeah.
Like, so the Salvi was right. DJ LeMahieu was right. All three outfielders were right.
There's really only one position that I could argue was not right. That I think legitimately they messed up.
What?
Relief pitcher.
Yeah, are we shitting Devin Williams right now?
The guy that we didn't give enough credit to in the Rookie of the Year voting.
No,
Devin Williams.
It's not that we didn't get enough credit to. It's we just thought that they weren't going to care about a bullpen.
That guy was the best pitcher in baseball as far as relievers. He did not make first team. He pitched more innings than both those guys. He struck out more batters than both those guys. Had a lower ERA than both those guys.
He is this is going to come. He
absolutely
impacted the game more than anybody went on the field.
Unbelievable.
That guy walked on the field and was the best player there every time. And that's not something that everyone can say every time they're on the field, right? You know, some people have off days. Devin Williams didn't have an off day.
No, he gave up one run. Run in 27 innings.
That's who I assumed you were going to say because the first thing I noticed when I read down the first team list was how are Devin Williams and Liam Hendricks not?
The second team, though, is very interesting.
I'm happy. I'm happy that guys like Brandon Lau are in there. I'm happy to see Mike Yastrzemski in there.
Second team catcher, JT Realmuto. First baseman, Jose Abreu. Brandon Lau at second. Corey Seager at short. Jose Ramirez at third. Acuna, Yastrzemski, and Conforto in the outfield. Cruz at DH. Lamet, Cole, Kershaw, Maeda, Ryu, Brad Hand, Devin Williams.
Yeah.
So there's some interesting ones here, though. Because my question is, with this all team, I feel like Corey Seager is on there because of his playoffs.
No.
Trey Turner was a better player than him.
Yeah, Trey Turner could also have been. Trey Turner could have also have been first team, and I wouldn't have questioned it. I think Trey Turner right now is the best shortstop in baseball.
Well, I think Trey Turner statistically beat out Corey Seager in almost every single stat. So, which makes me think that Corey Seager's hype from the playoffs got him into that second team over Trey Turner.
I mean, Corey Seager had a great year.
He did. I'm not taking anything away from how well he played. I just think that he got overhyped
because he was
for this award.
Yeah,
because he was also a stud in the postseason.
He was the best player in the postseason.
Right. I mean, so let's see here. I'm just curious. We're gonna Trey Turner.
Trey Turner had 78 hits.
Well, I mean, even if we want to take it down to one simple thing, Corey Seager's 2020 WAR was 1.9. Trey Turner's was 2.2. That's kind of the all-encompassing number. So they're saying that Trey Turner had a better season.
But Trey Turner also played more, which matters.
But to me, how does that not? I mean, that's part of being a player, though. Being on the field is part of being a player. It's not. How is it a disadvantage? It shouldn't be a disadvantage to Trey Turner that he played more.
Oh, I agree.
So I don't know. I just wonder if Corey Seager's postseason played a role in his election of the second team. Now, don't get me wrong. They both played phenomenally. They both played super, super well. I just feel like Trey Turner kind of got cheated here because Corey Seager plays in front of the bigger market and had a huge postseason in front of everybody. That's kind of my argument there.
Man, neither of these guys can field baseballs.
Well, that's why
Trey Turner made 9 errors, which is hilarious.
That's why Fernando Tatis went shortstop.
Because in 2019, Trey Turner made 13 errors, and in 2020, he made 9.
Right.
And then Seager made 8. And like to put that in perspective, DeYoung made 4, and he made 3 in a game. So, yeah.
Rough, man.
So, yeah. I mean, I like I said. I mean, you could easily. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think Corey Seager is fine there. I mean, I just think Trey Turner is the best shortstop in baseball. I do. Last year, him stepping on the field. I mean, all 3 of those guys are game changers. If you could have gone 1-2, I would have gone. Personally, I'd have gone Turner at 1. But there was nothing you could have done.
Well, but what you just said there, though, Tatis had a huge year and was a much better defensive player too, though.
Yeah,
I personally think. But based on WAR, Tatis had a higher WAR than both of them too. So if you went with WAR, they're saying Tatis had a better year.
I'm also not the biggest.
I'm just trying to use a quick, simple stat there, so I don't have to sit here and read every stat. But I mean, it's just an interesting thought, though, that by the merit of what Tatis beat out Trey Turner, shouldn't have Trey Turner have beat out Corey Seager? I don't know. It's just, I mean, and that's the thing is there's always debate because there's so many good stud players. I mean, don't get me wrong. I just think that the big market player won out here. And I think that that is going to be a struggle that you have in these all team anytime there's fan voting. Is that you're always going to have large markets. I mean, you know how hard it would be for a Marlins player to make this list? He would have to get national attention all year long in order to make a list like this.
I mean, you don't have to. I mean, Perez was just the best player.
Well, that's what I'm saying, though, is a guy you'd have to...
You have to be the best player.
But if you were the best player, you would probably get national attention.
Just like happened to Turner, is Perez maybe didn't get all the national attention like you're saying, but he was just the best player, and it was unquestionable. And that's kind of what the Marlins would have to do. You'd have to have a player be the best and it not be a question.
Well, like Stanton's MVP year, there was no question that he was an absolute stud as MVP year. No question at all.
Well, he won back-to-back MVPs if he didn't get hit in the face.
Well, should have been standing there.
Shouldn't have been standing there. I was going to say something about something. I mean, I liked the...
Yastrzemski's interesting. Not because I don't think he didn't deserve it. He just kind of came out of nowhere. I mean, that's what's kind of interesting about some of these things is like, you know, you just weren't... He's not a guy that going into the season, I thought, man, watch out for Yastrzemski out there in San Francisco, you know? It's just...
I'm really intrigued. Yep, Jose Abreu played first base. I was going to say, was he a DH or a first baseman? And he was definitely a first baseman. He played in 60 games, and he played 54 at first. So he's definitely a first baseman.
Yep.
I was wondering if he was... Because
I bet...
You said your big argument, and which is right, the correct argument, is Devin Williams over Nick Anderson. But you could easily, I mean, you could make an argument, I guess, too, for a guy named Jose Abreu over Freddie Freeman because the 2 best players in the MLB this year both play the same position.
Yeah, no, I mean, you definitely could. I think when it came down to that, I'm pretty certain that Freddie Freeman is considerably a better defender than Jose Abreu is, though.
I would assume.
Freddie
Freeman did cost them 8 unearned.
I want to know how difficult, though, looking at the first and second team, how hard was it to decide what starting pitchers went on what team? I mean, obviously, you lagged, by the way. Did I? Yeah. So I just wonder how hard was it to decide which starting pitchers went on which team? I mean, obviously, Trevor Bauer and Shane Bieber were studs. Yu Darvish was a stud. But, I mean, and not that DeGrom wasn't or Fried wasn't, but, I mean, look at the names on that second team. I mean, those are still really good pitchers. It would have been very hard to sit down and pick 5 guys and say these are the best 5 pitchers in baseball. That would have been extremely difficult.
I would take the top 5 over the bottom 5. All 5. I agree. I agree with this list.
I'm not completely disagreeing, but I'm definitely not envious of the situation of trying to decide that.
I'm also impressed of Ryu dominating the National League. The Dodgers saying, I have 0 interest in re-signing you. And then just dominated the American League and NL East.
And Kenta Maeda, also a former Dodger on there.
I know.
And then Kershaw, a current Dodger, still on there. Just crazy, man.
Yeah, the fact that the Dodgers traded 2, not 1, but 2 Cy Young finalists and said, we're the best team in baseball no matter what during the regular season, and we're the best team in the postseason. And just said, we're just going to win it all. that's what's like impressive to me is because those two guys, Kentai and Ryu, just went straight to the American League and were in the top 3. Obviously, Bieber and Bauer are your 1 and 2. I mean, the AL Triple Crown and Trevor Bauer, the NL Cy Young, and he was just the best pitcher. Yu Darvish, those 3 are right. This year, going off 2020, no matter what, the top 3 are correct.
I'm interested in because I just happened to look this up for WAR for pitchers. What goes into that? Because if you weren't looking it up, who would you say the top 3 pitchers in WAR were for 2020?
For some reason, I'm just going to say Devin Williams.
Okay, well, I'm only on the National League here. I just pulled up the National League one. So top 3 National League WAR pitchers.
I think I heard this. There was... Who was it? I think Fried was first.
Okay.
And then it was Fried, Wheeler, and a Colorado guy, I think.
It is. Those are the top 3 starting pitchers for WAR. It's just, and then Bauer is at 4. Followed by Zach Gallen, and then Yu Darvish and DeGrom.
Well, once again, I
just wonder what they factor in WAR for pitchers.
Well,
that your best pitcher is not the highest in WAR. It's just interesting.
Well, the issue with WAR, and I said this before, especially in 2020, and when we talked about who's going to win the Cy Young, and I said the NL was a lot closer than people think, even though the DeGrom stats are worse, is DeGrom had to only pitch against and in NL and AL East ballparks against those teams. In the NL Central and the AL Central, 7 of the 10 teams didn't score runs. Right. So Bauer's season was by far more impressive, and so was Bieber's. But 7 of the 10 teams in those 2 divisions didn't score any runs. They just didn't. The entire NL Central just took the year off with their bats. They just said, "We're not going to score, and you're going to do nothing about it." I mean, the Cubs couldn't score at all. I think all 5 finished in the 20th or below in runs, and 4 of them made the postseason because their pitching was so good.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's just an odd year, and I'm interested. So I heard someone on MLB Network today say that they would be surprised if 2021 plays a full season.
Interesting.
It is. It was very interesting, and it scares me a little as a baseball fan to have another year without a full year of baseball. But I don't know. Part of me, I don't know. I in a full 162 game season, I find myself in a lull, for a good chunk of the middle, where I'm not truly a diehard baseball fan for a little while. But with the 60 game season, I was so into it the whole time.
I mean, 60 games is not enough. And I know you're not saying that 60.
Yeah, it's just I don't know. It does make me wonder, is 162 too many though? You know?
Yeah.
But so there's
the season needs to be 140. They need to take 20 plus games.
For the sake of the fact that we're already at 40 minutes, I'm not going to bring up what I was about to say, but because that's a whole nother conversation. But there's a lot of interesting conversation that I heard today, and I'm going to write a note to this. Just so that we can talk about it next week.
Lance Lynn, number 1 in innings pitched.
Yeah, I heard that as well.
Of nature.
So I just think that there's I don't know, baseball. I think baseball does struggle with fans because of how long the games feel and how long the season is. It's hard for casual people to really follow 162 games. So I am interested to see if they make any kind of changes like that. There is a little quick note here that I'm interested in your opinion on. There's a couple guys who are up for Hall of Fame induction this year. Johan Santana and Billy Wagner. Those are kind of fringe guys that I'm kind of interested in your thoughts of Johan Santana and Billy Wagner. Do you see them as Hall of Famers, or do you see them in the Hall of Really Good?
I mean, if we're really going Johan Santana, that guy was a for sure Hall of Famer until his body just died, right? because he isn't the Hall of really good. He is an absolute freak of nature, but he got hurt all the time, right? Him in Minnesota was as dominant as anybody in the time.
Even for the Mets, he was really dominant.
I know. He no-hit the Cardinals. Actually, he no-hit the Cardinals. If you remember that game.
I do.
But, I don't know.
I heard this comparison for
pitching's
Johan.
hard. Pitching is hard. The Baseball Hall of Fame is stupid.
It's really hard to get in.
It's really hard to get in, and the baseball writers are stupid. And anyone, and I don't know if you agree with this. I don't know if I'm going to roast you. I don't give a shit if you think a player deserves to be in the Hall of Fame on their second ballot. That means they deserve to be on their first ballot, unless there were 10 other guys you thought were better. But I know that there are writers who do vote who say, no, this guy's not good enough because he shouldn't make the Hall of Fame on his first try, even if his stats are good enough. So I'm just not going to put him on there. So I don't know. Baseball is.
So I did hear this conversation earlier on MLB Network because they were talking.
I don't know anything about Billy Wagner.
So they were talking about the fact that they said that they need to change the way the voting is for similar reasons that you said. They said that 10 a year is kind of small to begin with, considering it's not 10 a year making it. I mean, it's hardly anyone making it, which is fine. I actually do respect MLB for having the Hall of Fame is pretty hard to get into. The NFL Hall of Fame, you walk right into it if you're just about anybody, honestly.
Yeah, because the sport changes so fast that
so
now any stat for quarterbacks in the day are any stat that Terry Bradshaw did, Sam Bradford probably blew out of the water. And
right. And so that's what's tough. But I love that baseball's kind of held that integrity of this is the Hall of Fame. You got to be the absolute best.
But they all get in anyway. It just takes 20 years later when the veterans do.
So they had said that they think that they should extend the time period, though, before you're removed from the ballot. Because basically what they said is, what does it hurt to have a guy on the ballot longer? How does that hurt anything? He's on the ballot. He's not in the Hall of Fame. How long are you
allowed on the ballot? I know there's minimum percentage.
Yeah, if you don't get a minimum percent, you're off. After the first year,
which I agree with.
Well, they're saying the person they used as an example was Kenny Lofton was a good player, but was in a very bloated class when it was his year to come up. So they were saying that you should get 3 years before you're removed from the ballot, just to give you a chance in case your year. Now, I don't know. To me, Kenny Lofton does not stand out as a guy that was a Hall of Famer. He's kind of that. He was always a good player, but I don't know. I just feel like he played forever, and that's why he's got the stats.
I feel like even the only thing he was ever really good at, he really didn't play forever. He only played 16 years, which isn't insane, I guess. But it
sure felt like he was.
Even the thing that he was known for being the best at, he's only 15th all time.
So anyways, back to the original thing, because we don't have time to go into everybody that should be a Hall of Famer or not. Johan Santana, though, the comparison they made was Johan Santana is the 2000s Sandy Koufax. He's a 2-time Cy Young, and he was the best pitcher in baseball for 8 years and then just died. It's this guy from 2002 to 2010 had over a 3 ERA 3 times. Everything else was under 3, and he's a 2-time Cy Young winner. It's kind of hard to argue with that. I get that he doesn't have the longevity, but for 8 years, he was probably the best pitcher in baseball. That's it's really hard to deny a 2-time Cy Young with multiple other Cy Young caliber seasons. It's hard to say you're not a Hall of Famer. That's kind of my opinion.
7th, 1st, 3rd, 1st, 5th, 3rd. That's consecutive.
So the argument I heard for Billy Wagner, you said you don't really know much about it. I personally don't know that much about his numbers, but basically what they said was Billy Wagner pitched during the same time period as Trevor Hoffman. Billy Wagner beat Trevor Hoffman in every single stat except saves. Trevor Hoffman's a Hall of Famer. So why is Billy Wagner not? Because he wasn't the big saves guy. He wasn't on a team that got him nearly as many saves. Wasn't the main saves guy every year like Trevor Hoffman was. But every other stat, he's better than Trevor Hoffman, who's a Hall of Famer.
But did he jog out to Hell's Bells?
I'm not 100% sure.
I'm sure he didn't. No, I'm joking.
I asked him.
I'm joking. I have no idea.
So I don't know. It's just interesting. It's just interesting to talk about some. It's just weird to talk about some of these guys we grew up watching now being potential Hall of Famers. It's kind of cool.
I know.
But I guess that is where we will end baseball. And now we're going to get started on the NFL here at the Lit Podcast. The last inning touchdown. Just got done with MLB. Time for the NFL. All kinds of craziness. Where to start? To begin with, I don't know. I wrote down a note that was about one player, but I need to vent about my whole team. My whole fantasy team right now. So I get the notification early on in the week that Christian McCaffrey looks like he's going to play this upcoming week. Turns out, he tweaked his quad in practice and now is doubtful to play this week. So Christian McCaffrey, my number one pick in the draft, doubtful to play.
He tweaked his quad in a private at-home workout.
So he tweaks his quad, now unlikely to play. Number one pick in my draft. Number two pick in my draft.
Is it Keeper League?
It's not. Josh Jacobs, doubtful to play this week. Third pick in the draft. Kenny Galladay, doubtful to play this week. Fourth pick in the draft. I take Kenyon Drake, who is now questionable to play this week because he tweaked his hip in practice. I get a notification last night that Tyreek Hill didn't practice yesterday because he was sick. Guess who now also has tweaked something or done something? Did not practice on Thursday due to a non-injury related reason. DeAndre Hopkins, now questionable to play this week. Antonio Gibson, doubtful to play this week. These are my whole team is doubtful to play this week. This is the first week of playoffs for me too, by the way. So the first week of playoffs, after having one of the worst weeks I've ever had in my life last week, because my whole team just literally had diarrhea all over the place.
And the person you played against also's whole team crapped the bed.
Oh, they're the worst team in the league. They're always like that every week. And I lost. I've lost to them twice because my team has had diarrhea every time I played them. I have like 4 losses on the season, and 2 of them are that guy. Anyways, so now I go into the first week of playoffs with my whole team now questionable to play. Fantasy football hates me. They hate me. I swear I'm jinxed in fantasy football. Ever since I had an absolute stud lineup, like 2 or 3 years ago, the year Todd Gurley popped off for the Rams, his huge season. I had Todd Gurley. This was my team. My team was Andrew Luck in his really good season before he retired. So when he came back, had a really good season and then quit. So I had Andrew Luck at quarterback. I had Todd Gurley. I had Christian McCaffrey. I had Tyreek Hill. I had Michael Thomas. And then honestly, it doesn't even matter after that. That was my team. That was the team I drafted because Christian McCaffrey wasn't known as a top running back yet. Tyreek Hill, I don't even think had played yet. I drafted Tyreek Hill because I knew his card was good in Madden because he had 99 speed. And I said, a 99 speed guy with Patrick Mahomes chucking the ball, this guy's going to be good. How about that? So I had absolute stud team. I make it all the way to championship. I'm talking mad smack the whole season because my team is just murdering everyone. I get to the championship. I had never had this problem in the league because my team was so much better. I never had to set my lineup. I just left the same guys in every week. I was good to go except for bye weeks. Apparently, our league had a lineup lock at midnight on Sunday. As soon as it turned over to Sunday, your lineup locked for the whole day. Championship game, Todd Gurley's questionable to play, And I'm sitting there with his backup on my bench saying, you know what? They're playing at 4 o'clock. If Gurley becomes not playing, I'll switch him for his backup. Not knowing our lineup locked at midnight. And so Todd Gurley's in my lineup. The game starts. I'm ready to switch it out. Lineup's locked. I end up losing the game by like 7 points. And I can't remember who Todd Gurley's backup was for that game, but he played phenomenal. And I lost by 7 freaking points because we had some stupid ass rule in our fantasy football league. Never heard of that ever. A lineup locking at midnight on a Sunday when half the time you don't even know who's playing until like an hour before the games. Unbelievable. Lost the championship. I have had nothing but bad luck in fantasy ever since then. Last year, I had Alvin Kamara and Nick Chubb. Guess who was hurt most of the year? Alvin Kamara. Guess who got hurt the whole last part of the year? Nick Chubb. Guess who I also had? Joe Mixon. Guess who sucked for 3/4 of the year last year? Joe Mixon. I mean, it is just unbelievable the terrible luck I've had in fantasy football. I have drafted 3 straight years of solid, good teams, and they're not panning out for me because of terrible fantasy luck. Unbelievable. I'm heated. I'm off my soapbox now. All right.
The last year I played fantasy was 2 years ago.
I thought it was last year.
Well, it was last year. And I basically just started the entire Ravens team, and it worked.
And it wouldn't work this year.
I know it wouldn't work this year, but I had Lamar Jackson, Mark Ingram, Marquise Brown was the guy on my bench, the Ravens defense, and Mark Andrews. So every once in a while, I would have had 5 Ravens starting, depending, and I had McCaffrey and Derrick Henry.
I know this is going to come up when we get to the Pickems.
And then
I already know it. I already know it, so we're just going to section it out now.
Okay.
Pittsburgh lost. Pittsburgh lost to Washington.
Oh, did they? I didn't notice.
Yeah, somebody called that. And
I didn't notice.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing about that game. The most impressive part to me is that Washington beat Pittsburgh without Antonio Gibson. Antonio Gibson was out of that game so freaking early that he got me no fantasy points. He got me like 1.4 fantasy points. But that's impressive because the Washington Flamingo team, they don't have a lot of really good players, and they lost one of them, and they still beat the Steelers. I mean, that's gotta kind of change your outlook on the Steelers the rest of the season come Pickems, I think. I think you're going to look at some of these matchups a little more closely, knowing that not only did Washington beat them, but Washington beat them without one of their best players. It's interesting. And I'm also frustrated about that game because
Washington's also just way better.
I'm also frustrated because Juju caught 7 passes in that game.
28 yards.
For 28 yards.
Yeah.
So
awesome.
He got me 7 points for catching the ball.
And 2.8.
Right.
Didn't he score a touchdown, though?
No, he didn't. If he did, I would have won. I lost by like 1.5 points.
Yeah.
And then
that's with Tucker missing a kick. The guy who doesn't miss
I lost my 2 seed by 1.5 points. I was the 2 seed in the league. And because I lost that game, we had 4 people in our league that were 8-5. And somebody passed me by like 1.5 points to take the 2 seed. So now I'm the 3 seed.
If there was any
And the 2 seed is the only seed that had to play somebody that was under 500 in our playoffs.
If there was any game for Antonio Gibson to miss, it was this Pittsburgh game because it was going to be a defensive brawl. I mean, Alex Smith threw 46 balls. Pittsburgh threw 53 balls, but only 40 points were scored total. Normally, if you see 99 passes, you're going to see more than 40 points. But, I mean, Pittsburgh decided just not to run the ball the whole day. And it's just 2 good defenses. Terry McLaurin and Antonio Gibson combined for 4 touches and 28 yards, and they won the game.
That's what's crazy. That's what I'm getting at here is that Washington kind of showed a little something too.
They're only 2 good players.
Yeah, they showed a little something. They showed a little something.
I mean, the Washington football team and the New York Football Giants are only 7-1 in their last 8 games. So, but I get whatever.
Well, the thing I want to state here also about teams is that the Vikings are now in the playoffs.
Yeah, because of this extra seed. I know. Cool.
The team that was like 1-4 that I chose as my comeback team is now no. They've lost one game since I picked them.
Well, aren't they 6-6?
They're 7-5.
They're 6-6.
What is this then? Oh, they are 6-6. There's some weird 7-5 down here in the corner and threw me off.
So yeah, they're 5-1.
I don't know what that means.
Since
so
being 1-5, they were 5-1.
Yeah. So that's
big.
I'm pretty sure I even stated I don't think there's any way they'll make the playoffs, but I think they're going to come back and have a decent season. And now all of a sudden they're right there in the playoff hunt.
Yeah, because a lot of teams are choking it, dude. It's awesome, and
it's pretty cool.
It's you called that, and technically I'm not right about this, but I said Washington was going to turn their season around and they were going to win the NFC East, and technically that's not true because the Giants I think are still in first place. But
the Giants are.
I was completely correct about the Washington football team turning their season around. I was also completely correct about the Detroit Lions turning their season around. So we're not going to talk about
the 5-7 Lions. They're on the bubble though. They're on the bubble. Yeah. So the picks, I guess we should note that we did previously. So because we're recording on Thursday instead of Wednesday, the Thursday night football game is currently going on. The Rams are winning 17-3. We decided before the game who we were going to pick. You picked the Rams. I didn't think they'd actually win, but I did pick the Patriots just solely because
they're 45-0.
I wanted to make it a little more interesting because we picked almost all the same teams last week, and B, because the Rams offense can be pretty shoddy at times, and I thought if anybody could exploit that, maybe the Patriots could. And actually they have, because the Rams scored a lot. No, it's 24-3 now. So it's not good. But so I'm going to be wrong here. But there was definitely times in this game that the Patriots looked like they could win. But I mean, Cam Newton sucks. Cam Newton is just terrible.
Yeah, he's terrible. That was garbage.
Cam Newton, I don't think it's possible to win football games with Cam Newton. And I think the Patriots are showing that Cam Newton is a detriment to your football team. I mean, it is just
they're
brutal.
6-6.
Because
apparently Jared Stidham's 5 for 7 in this game right now.
Well, I turned on the game for the second quarter before we went live here, and the Patriots had like 190 total yards in the second quarter, and the Rams had like 70, and it was 17-3 Rams.
I don't think that's true though.
Well, it showed up on the screen, so I'm going with it.
Wait. Yes. I mean, the Rams had a 70-yard touchdown drive. Then they had a 70-yard drive for a field goal in the first quarter. So it's 140 yards in the first.
Well, I'm talking about in the second quarter, only the second quarter.
Oh,
not
second
the total,
quarter.
Yeah,
Rams didn't do anything.
So it's
Rams,
like the
Rams
Patriots.
Had 29 yards of offense.
The Patriots made it seem like they were going to dominate them in the second quarter, and yet they couldn't. They were dominating them, but they couldn't score. And Cam Newton looked like an idiot.
Looked like they got stuffed at the one.
Well, Cam Newton sucks. That's
the
moral of the story.
Cam threw a pick 6. So the offense only scored 17 points.
I watched Cam Newton complete a pass that was actually him getting sacked and the ball deflected, and it just happened to lay it in his own receiver's hands.
And he's still only 9 for 16 with a pick and a pick 6.
Absolutely brutal. All right, so
what was you were winning the yearly season by +3 or something like that?
I was up by 4 because you are now down 60-59.
So I'm not down 1. So I went +3 last week.
You went +3 on me because the only 3 games we decided differently, you were correct on all 3. So as of tonight, it looks like you're going to be up. We're going to be even after this Thursday night game.
Thursday.
But here we go. So Sunday. All right, my first game I have is the Vikings at Buccaneers. This is an interesting one. This is a very interesting one. This is really tough here because the Vikings are the team that I said was going to bounce back. And they've done that. But in this scenario, I think the Buccaneers are a much more complete team. And so I'm going to have to pick against my own team and say that Tampa Bay wins here because I believe they're just a more complete team in this situation.
Tampa's off a bye. Them and Carolina had the only buys. in Tampa. Minnesota's 5-1. But Tampa has done bad against really any good defense. Here's the issue. Minnesota doesn't have a good defense. I'm going Tampa.
I was going to say, I don't think Minnesota's defense has been all that good, but I'm going to see where it goes with this, because sometimes he pulls things out of his butt.
They're really good offensively. Kirk Cousins underrated. That's not true.
So,
he's like perfectly rated.
I don't know how many times this has ever happened in the history of the NFL. We have a third place team playing a first place team, and the third place team is 6-6, and the first place team is 5-7. So the team with the worst record here and under 500 is the first place team in this matchup. So the Cardinals at the Giants. I don't know, man. The Cardinals have not looked great, and the Giants have a solid defense.
I'm going to put an asterisk on this. The Cardinals are a Hail Mary away from also being 5-7.
I'm pretty sure you've mentioned that every single weekend.
Since everyone said they were good. And it's like, they're never really that good. Their record was like, okay, like all of a sudden they were 6-4, and everyone was like, oh my God. It's like, no, guys, we were losing a football game when we threw up a prayer and DeAndre Hopkins jumped higher than everybody else. So I'm saying, are they really that good? 5-7, everyone talks about how the Bears are a garbage 5-7 football team. Everyone thinks Washington's not that good or the Giants aren't that good. But then people think of Arizona and they're like, this is a good offense. They got DeAndre Hopkins, Kyler Murray, and all this stuff. And it's like, are they really that good? They're a jump all the way from also being 5-7. I'm going Giants.
Interesting.
I'm going Giants. They're in the Meadowlands. Is it going to bite me in the ass? Yes. But I like the Giants. I'm big on defenses this year unless you're playing against like Kansas City. I'm big on defenses.
I'm not 100% sure that I disagree with you here. I'm not 100% sure, but I am going to go against you here, and I'm going to grab Arizona in this matchup. I'm pretty sure they've screwed me every time I've picked them, but I kind of need a big game out of Kenyon Drake and DeAndre Hopkins this week, so I'm going to bet on my own team here and hope for the best.
Nice.
And so we'll go with that. This one's kind of
a sneaky good game.
It is, but it kind of sucks. Also,
it could be a sneaky game.
So we do have the Dolphins and the Chiefs. I think that they're both solid. I don't know if the Dolphins are at the caliber of the Chiefs, but then at the same time, do you think the Chiefs are going to finish with only one loss? I don't know. I'm always kind of a buyer on the fact that like not a lot of teams finish, perfect or with one loss. So I don't know. That's kind of tough. But at the same time, the Chiefs defense has been solid. The Chiefs offense is solid. I'm still going to have to go Kansas City here. I would feel weird betting against
Kansas City. Is like 21-1 in their last 22, I think.
I would have a hard time betting against them.
And you say quarterbacks and defense, right?
And they've
got the Dolphins have a good defense, and they have literally no quarterback if you play Tua, because he doesn't take enough risks to actually throw the ball. So he throws for like 120 yards and 1 touchdown, no picks, and it's not bad, but it's not going to be Patrick Mahomes. I'm going Chiefs. He's not turning the ball over. He's doing a good job that way.
Game of the week: Titans at Jaguars.
Titans, I believe, just lost to. Didn't they just lose to Cleveland?
They did. They did just lose to Cleveland. So
now Tennessee is in must-win scenario because them and the Colts have the same record, which means that's bad for the Jaguars.
But I've also heard that and I heard this on the radio today or yesterday, that the spread for this game is only like 7 points now. Like it's creeping. It's creeping towards this being a close game. Or it's just people really like the Jaguars here in this.
Well, the Jaguars have lost 4 games by 3 points or less.
So, Titans at Jaguars.
Titans?
Yeah, part of me wants to kind of play the underdog here. And then I just told myself, name one player on the Jaguars besides their running back. I can't do it. So we're going to go ahead
Jaguars are the worst defense in the NFL. Derrick Henry is the best running back, arguably the best running back in the NFL, and Ryan Tannehill will pick you apart. Not going to be the best quarterback, but he will pick you apart when needed. I'm going Titans by a landslide.
Here we go. 3-9 Cowboys versus the 2-9-1 Bengals.
So if Joe Burrow was playing, I would go Cincy, but I'm going Dallas.
I'm also going Dallas. Dallas has too many talented players to lose this game.
Yeah, I mean,
with the Bengals with no quarterback.
We clearly see the reason why the Bengals were hanging in football games was clearly only because of their quarterback, not because of anybody else on that team.
Well, it doesn't help that Joe Mixon hasn't been healthy either. Not that a running back can do things on his own, really. But, I mean, when you lose your quarterback and running back, you're definitely not going to win any games.
I know you're saying Joe Mixon because of fantasy, but no, that's not the reason. Joe Mixon playing or not playing has never mattered in Cincinnati when it came to when their quarterbacks were god-awful.
Well, that's what I'm
Andy
saying.
Dalton's revenge.
What I'm saying though is that Mixon, a running back, can't do well without a good quarterback. But it definitely doesn't help when your two best players are hurt and they're your quarterback.
Andy Dalton's revenge. Yeah. Going Dalton.
All right, this is an interesting one a little bit.
I know. You know what I'm doing.
Texans versus the Bears.
What am I doing?
Well, you're gonna hop aboard the Bears down train. And it almost bit you in the butt last week. Almost, but the Bears still managed to choke it.
Yeah, it almost bit me in the butt. But once again, it didn't. I'm 6-0 picking against the Bears. I'm going Texans all day. I am not breaking. I have picked the Bears to lose since we've done this podcast. So like you said, this is week 7. I have predicted the Bears to lose all 6 games, and they have lost all 6 games. I'm going Texans.
I'm torn here.
So the Texans aren't that good. You got Mitch Trubisky, second overall pick, or maybe third. I don't remember. Versus Deshaun Watson in like the 24th overall pick of the same draft.
Deshaun Watson came out and said basically he don't give anything that they skipped over him to get Trubisky. That's how he feels.
No, he doesn't care. He went to Clemson, lost a title, won a title, went to Houston, had success, and the Bears have been dog shit besides one missed field goal that got blocked.
So, here's the thing. Here's what I'm trying to do right now. I think Texans are going to win this game, and I have sat here and tried to convince myself that somehow maybe Chicago could win, and I could pick them, and it would be an interesting matchup, and I just can't do it, so I have to go Houston. Yep. I just can't convince myself that in any way do I think the Bears are good enough to win. I mean, the Texans just played the Colts really well, and the Colts are a lot better than the Bears.
Yeah, and the Bears played the Titans really well. Wait. Colts are a lot better than the Lions. I think I said Titans.
You did, but I knew what you meant.
The Bears played the Lions very well, but the Colts...
And they didn't, though. They actually had a pretty big lead that they blew. So they really didn't play well at all. All right, so the 4-8 Broncos at the 4-8 Panthers. This is a not interesting game.
Yeah, this might be the snooze fest of the week, honestly.
Probably. I mean, I'm not really interested in it. I'm going Carolina.
I'll go Denver. Only to be different.
Well, when was the last time that Locke had a big touchdown performance? Is he even healthy?
I don't know, dude. He's too busy getting COVID, and
that's what I'm saying. I don't know if he's even playing, but
probably smoking all the weed.
Oh my gosh, this is the matchup of the week: the 0-12 Jets at the 8-4 Seahawks.
Seahawks just lost a big game that costed them first place. They have to win, and the Jets just suck. So the Jets are throwing. The Seahawks are going to win.
The Jets are throwing. They actually had a lead last week, and then all of a sudden they didn't. They're throwing. They don't want to win.
Greg Williams called Engage 8 from Madden on a winner take all play.
We'll talk about that. Actually, something else when we get there. I was gonna interrupt what we're doing to talk about what we'll talk about when we get to that team. All right, the 8-4 Colts at the 7-5 Raiders.
I don't know.
This is a tough one because the Raiders have somehow managed to make themselves look like a tremendous football team and a terrible football team in the same season.
Yeah, I don't really know how close this is.
And And I think that the Colts have just been steady. And I think I'm going to go Colts here because of that.
I'm also going to go Colts here because this Raiders team, after giving every single thing they had on Sunday Night Football against the Kansas City Chiefs, lost by 37 to Atlanta and then almost just lost to the Jets. I mean, basically winning by 3 is losing to the Jets. I mean, these guys, they have been so awful that they almost lost to the 0-11 Jets and lost by 30. I think the Jets gave it to them. What?
I think the Jets gave it to them because they didn't want to win.
Exactly. They lost by 37 to the Falcons, a team that can't close out anybody, and then almost lost to the Jets. You cannot go Vegas here. You have to go Colts. Colts are also in a must-win game because the Colts and Titans are fighting it out at the top of that division, and one of them's going to get like a friggin' one of them's going to get like a 3 seed, and the other is going to get like a friggin' 7 seed. So
this is a interesting 5-7 game.
Mm-hmm.
The Washington Flamingo Turds against the 49ers. And it's interesting because you've already picked the Giants, who are in first place. So now you need your Washington team to win.
I'm also picking Washington, yes.
So that they can play in their playoff spot.
I'm picking Washington and the Giants to be 9-1 in their last 10. Yes, I'm doing that.
So the 49ers, if I'm not
mistaken, I've said both those teams were better than they were giving credit for earlier in the year. Anyways,
I feel like the 49ers, as of late, are getting a little healthier and are looking they look a little better last 2-ish weeks. I know they lost to Buffalo, but
it's a good football team.
It is. It's a very good team, and then they beat the Rams.
Yep.
I don't know, man. I really don't know. I
really think Washington's going to win this game. Actually, no. I think San Francisco is going to play this game pretty well, but I'm not going to pick against my Washington football team and pick the Giants. You're right. I'm not going to do that.
That's what's tough here, and so for the sake of competition, I'll go San Francisco. I think it's a toss-up game. So for the sake of conversation, and I actually may lean more towards Washington, but
I think Carolina is going to beat Denver. I have no faith in the Denver Broncos, but those toss-up games, we have to be different sometimes. We can't be, we can't pick all the same teams.
Competition here.
Yeah, we can't pick all the same teams.
Well, here's the true competition of the week: is the 10-2 Saints versus the 3-8-1 Jalen Hurts Eagles.
Saints by 30.
Wow. Is Taysom Hill still playing, or is
it doesn't matter.
Drew Brees coming back?
It doesn't matter.
I was just curious. I'm also taking the Saints. I was just curious if Taysom Hill is still their quarterback or not. Man, what do you think about this Carson Wentz on the bench thing?
Wentz on the bench. What do I think about it? I think it's the complete wrong play. I think you asked me that because you know my answer. I think it's a horrible play.
If you were a big time Eagles fan, like, let's say that we had a really close friend who was an Eagles fan. Like, what words would you have for him to help him through these tough times?
Brandon, you're stubborn, and it's not going to matter. It's not going to matter what I say because you're so stubborn. But what I would say is, me and Brandon are actually in on this. Is the fact that the Eagles having garbage receivers and an incredibly hurt offensive line does not matter if Wentz or Hurts is playing quarterback. Hurts is not going to come in there and all of a sudden just play incredibly good football because their whole team's hurt. Yes, his mobility, I guess, helps him with the bad offensive line who's hurt. But I don't think just shoving him in there is a good idea. But at the same time, I think Wentz is going to go into next year being the starting quarterback if healthy. So maybe, keeping him healthy is more important. And if they go get a receiver or something, they'll be better and just get healthy. Because everyone talks about the Niners are decimated by injuries. I think the Eagles are just as equally decimated by injuries, but I think the Niners are better coached and there's a better overall team. But the Eagles, I think this movement really makes no sense to go to Jalen. Maybe it's to keep the fans a little more intrigued, even though Wentz is going to be starting next year.
Well, it's also interesting, too, because, you mentioned the mobility of Hurts, but it's like Wentz is kind of like having a tight end back there that's willing to just run somebody over. That dude runs with aggression. I mean, he's like Cam Newton in that matter. Like, he tries to run you over.
2 weeks ago, when he knew he was fighting for his life, I forgot what game it was. I mean, he was literally on one of the touchdown drives. You could have put no team was stopping him on the touchdown drive. The Steelers defense wasn't. The Washington defense wasn't. You were not stopping Wentz on that drive. He was like, I have to score a touchdown here or I'm getting benched. And he ran for like 30 yards and did exactly what Jason was saying. Instead of sliding, he was running right through linebackers and falling forward for those extra 2 or 3 yards. Yeah, Wentz is a big tight end. He moves well. He moved better before he tore his ACL, I think. But you got to go Saints. They're just so good. I picked against them a lot.
The Eagles are just so bad. It really doesn't matter who they're playing.
The Eagles are so bad, and the Saints are the best team in the NFC right now. So
here's another.
Sean Payton does wonders over.
Here's another toss-up kind of game. The Falcons at Chargers. So I just got embarrassed. So this is where I did. I had something I wanted to say. Oh, so the Chargers. And I wish I would have. Yeah, they lost 45-0. But I wish I would have known this going into this game. The Chargers coach on like Tuesday told his whole team that they were no longer able to win a playoff spot,
which was a lie. He said, "You guys," he just said, wild card technically it's still possible, but it's pretty much just out of reach.
And then you go out and get smoked 45-0. You should be fired immediately. You should
be fired. If you fired Anthony Lynn, you'd fired the only good thing going in San Diego besides Herbert.
You can't say that though. You cannot go in and.
Who cares? It's the truth. Sometimes
they lost 45-0 right after. The team had no drive, and it was a terribly coached game too. They looked awful. They were so outcoached in that game.
They're so screwed. And Anthony Lynn is so good. Yes, he had probably the worst day of his career, and he might be the worst day he ever has. They literally just pretty much fired their special teams coach, and they're making Anthony Lynn coach the special teams as well. He's not the special teams coordinator.
Well, after last week's coaching performance from Tuesday to Sunday, there's something special he should be coaching, and it's not the NFL.
Yeah, it was a rough week, but if you think the Chargers get rid of Anthony Lynn,
I don't know, man. I just don't think your leader can go out and tell your team, hey, you know what, we can't win any more games. Like we're just, whatever we do, we're just not going to win. You might as well have just said, like, I have no faith in us anymore. Like,
no, he just said
whatever. No, see, you can't do that. I'm still going Chargers this week because I don't like the Falcons.
I'm going Falcons.
But, it is what it is. If I would have known he said that, there's no way I would have picked the Chargers. They went out and looked like they played like a team that knew they were done.
They played like a team that just got beat 45-0. Yikes! I'm going Falcons. Did the Falcons even play last week? Yeah, they played. They lost last week.
All right, 9-3 Packers versus your 5-7 Lions.
Yeah, all right, Lions. Your luck is over.
I'm gonna call that a Green Bay pick.
Yeah, Lion, your luck is over. Aaron Rodgers really flexes his love for Matthew Stafford on a regular basis, and Stafford's probably going to ball out, but the Packers probably going to be too much in the long run. And I think the Lions will actually probably play this game tighter than expected, but I just don't think they're going to have I mean, if this was in Green Bay, I'd say Packers by 30, but they're in Detroit.
This next game is a game that I already know what direction you're going. I already know.
Do you? Just because I love Josh Allen, you think I'm going to pick the Bills?
I do. I think that this is one of those games that you're looking at it and you're like, wow, this is going to be such a good game. But after last week...
I don't know why you're so down on Washington. That was a very common pick. I was not the only one to make that pick, Jason. That was a very common thing.
But Washington did it without one of their top 2 players. And they did it without using either of their top players.
Mm-hmm. The shows are just better than expected, or Pittsburgh's way worse.
That's kind of what I'm getting at here. I'm not saying anything about Washington. I'm saying that Pittsburgh is not as good as it appears. And I think that Buffalo wins this game. And I don't even know that it's close.
I think it's going to be an incredibly close football game. I think it's going to be an incredibly great football game, unlike you. And I think the Bills are going to win it. One thing that I've noticed,
Buffalo wins by at least 10.
One thing I've noticed is, man, Buffalo's played a brutal schedule. I mean, look at the schedule. I mean, this is the season. They played the Jets. Okay, whatever. At Miami, the Rams, in Vegas, In Tennessee, they played the Chiefs, and they played the Jets again, whatever. The Patriots. Then they played Seattle, Arizona. They beat the Chargers and the Niners. I mean, these guys. And then now they're playing Pittsburgh, and then they play Denver, New England, and the Miami to end the year. So Denver's not going to be that most difficult for them. They should beat the Patriots, and then the Dolphins are going to be a close game to end the year. But that is a brutal schedule to play. I didn't realize the NFC East was playing and the NFC West were playing each other this year. So the Bills, because the NFC West has it easy because the AFC East isn't really that good. But the Bills didn't only have to play a second place schedule, they also had to play the NFC West. And because they finished in second place, they had to play the Titans, who I believe finished in second place in their division, but they're the best team in the AFC South last year. I mean, and then they had to play that's a brutal schedule, and I'm afraid they're going to tire out, but I'm still going Bills.
I think the Bills win by at least 10.
Yeah, I mean, you've been really down on Pittsburgh for weeks because you've been big on the Pittsburgh and Cleveland being drastically overrated because of how easy their schedule is, and I can't blame you.
So that's where this comes into play now because I have the 7-5 Ravens, 9-3 Browns.
I mean, the Ravens and Browns play the same schedule though.
But I'm just saying the Browns are 9-3. That's what I'm getting at here. This is an interesting.
Yeah, there's only two teams better with. There's only three teams with better records than them. Saints, Steelers, Chiefs.
It's just so weird.
Because you're talking about that easy schedule.
It just feels like the Browns have lost more than 3 games, but they
never lose. What do you mean?
They're not losing, though. That's what's weird, is it just keeps, like, in my mind, I keep feeling like they're losing these games, but they're just not.
Well, what happens is they play a good team, and they've been getting blown out.
They played the Ravens
with the exception of Tennessee.
And lost 38-6.
What'd you say?
They played the Ravens in September and lost 38-6.
Yeah, and then they played Pittsburgh and lost 38-7. So I mean, this team is another one of those teams. They beat Cincy by 5. They beat a bad Washington. I don't know what you said, field turds or something by 14 because that's when they were bad. They beat the Cowboys by 11 when the Cowboys didn't have Dak. They did beat the Colts. I'll give them that. They only beat the Bengals by 3. They lost to Vegas. They beat the Texans 10-7. They beat the Eagles 22-17. They beat the Jacksonville Jaguars 27-25. I mean, that's a 3-point win, a 5-point win, a 3-point win, a 3-point win, a 5-point win.
But they're coming off a stomping for them of the Titans.
Yeah, a 6-point win. To be fair, Tennessee scored 2 touchdowns under the 2-minute mark.
And I only call it a stomping for them because they really had no business even being in this game. So scoring 41 points against the Titans is very surprising. They held Derrick Henry reasonably in check. I mean,
and this game was actually a lot farther away than it looks on paper. 41-35, game looks close. Tennessee scored 2 touchdowns under 2 minutes left to try to make it interesting. Right. But they scored with like 8 seconds left or something.
Well, and so what's also interesting,
going Cleveland, even though the Ravens beat them by 32 to start the year. I'm going Cleveland.
So that's surprising to me a little bit. But here's the other interesting fact that I think is interesting. So when Cleveland played the Cowboys earlier,
fact I think is interesting.
So when they played the Cowboys early on in the year, they were up like a ton at halftime and then did nothing the second half. Well, that's exactly what they just did against the Titans as well. They put up almost all their points in the first half of the game and then did nothing the entire second half and made their defense hold on to it. Oh, but the Ravens are struggling all over the place. I mean, I think the Ravens are looking like not even making the playoffs now. I mean, they're not even a playoff team. Oh, man.
Are they actually not a playoff team?
They're not, right?
They're not. Yeah, they're not. Yeah.
They're not. Man, that is tough. This is a really tough game. I don't like the Ravens, but I don't like the Browns either. I'm gonna go Baltimore.
It's a must-win for the Ravens.
We're gonna go for the competitive game here of I'm going Baltimore because I don't really feel strongly one way or another. Kind of a toss-up. I would bet that the odds on that game are pretty much a toss-up too. If you were to find the true betting odds.
May the odds be ever in your favor.
So that's, I mean, yeah, we'll call that one a toss up as well and see where that ends us up at. Uh-oh.
Yeah. Right now the Ravens are the 9 seed.
Yeah. So that'll be interesting. It should be a good week. I think that we have a little more deviation than we have in the past, a little bit in the last couple of weeks. We won't talk about what I just did. That's okay.
The Giants are a 4 seed. Love to see it.
Don't worry, I found it. I accidentally closed out of my thing that had our notes on it for those picks, but I found it. We're good. All right, so that completes our...
Right now, the Packers would play the Vikings in the first
Pickem
round.
challenge. Do we have anything else we want to talk about with the NFL before we move on? Got any surprising little things you'd like to mention?
Let's
see, I don't know if
the MVP pretty much stayed the same.
Yeah, I didn't have anything else. We're at 40 minutes also, so that's probably a good place to be done with the NFL on the podcast here.
I was about to rip out some stuff. Apparently Aaron Donald had a pretty big game.
Doesn't surprise me, honestly. So now we're moving on to Overwatch League here on the Lit Podcast. Last inning touchdown, a little bit of esports action here. Quite a few signings for not a lot of teams. In the last little bit here, the Outlaws, their bigger signings were Piggy and KSF. Paris re-signed a whole bunch of people all over the place. The more known players are Naga, Onigod, and Neptuno. The Valiant brought back Agilities. Yeah, I know the...
That's from a previous season, by the way.
Yes, Agilities was with them season 1.
Yeah, and then he was with
I think the Gladiators they brought some people back too, but I don't know if they went official on Overwatch League website yet. So I don't remember who they were, but I don't remember them being super big deal. So yeah, I mean, I think there's your Outlaws are kind of filling out a roster. I've heard that, I don't know a ton about Contenders, but I've heard that Piggy was really good in Contenders. I actually heard that that's a pretty solid...
an absolute zero about Contenders.
Yeah, I had heard that he was a pretty solid pick. I think Paris getting Onigod is kind of interesting because it's kind of like Dallas sent Paris Onigod for Exy, basically. And Onigod had a lot of potential. It's just he was playing for a Dallas team that wasn't good. So it's really hard for your DPS players to truly pop off on the rest of your team.
Well, that Dallas team was actually supposed to be like, they actually had like some upside like Dallas always does. Right. But I felt like they were better than they were supposed to be. And then...
Yeah, Decay was carrying them, and then
Decay went to Washington, and then
before that, Onigod kept playing, and you're like, well, where's Decay? Why is Decay not playing? Why are you playing Onigod over Decay? And then...
And they put Decay, and then Washington gets him, puts Decay on Zarya, and then they give him the Hall of Fame treatment. Right. And just they'll sacrifice all 5 bodies to keep Decay alive, and now all of a sudden they were winning a boatload of games, and they helped their map count a lot because they like 3-0'd almost all the series.
So this is something that I saw a little article about, and it's not that we're gonna know a ton of stuff about, but I found out that the Gladiators, the Spitfires, and the Outlaws are all using rookie GMs this year. The Outlaws are using, what's his name? Used to play for them. Good looking dude. Blanking on his name now. I believe it's Matt.
Jake?
No. I believe his name's Matt. I can't remember his actual name now. Blanking. Cool Matt. He was Cool Matt in Overwatch League. So he's now their GM. He was a popular guy season 1, but this is the more interesting thing that I noticed when I was looking through this. So the Gladiators and Spitfires, to begin with, Gladiators have been making kind of a big splash this offseason as well. So that's interesting that a new GM came in. But the Gladiators and Spitfire, both of their GMs are female. I thought that was interesting. Because if you lump esports and real sport, athletic sports, let's say athletic sports and esports together, there's not a whole lot of women in those type of positions. And it's especially kind of surprising to see it in esports because there's kind of that annotation that women aren't big into video games. But I mean, you got 2 women here saying I'm just as big as anybody else, if not bigger, because I'm right here making the decisions for a multi-million-dollar Overwatch League franchise. I mean, it's pretty cool. It's interesting though that, I mean, you could almost say that in a way, Overwatch League's GM situation is a little more progressive than other sports. Because
it's just absolutely. I mean, baseball just got their first one. It's actually your GM.
Yeah, and that's what's interesting to me, that an esport would be the. I mean, as of right now, they kind of seem almost like they're leading the way in this innovation of female GMs, and it's just kind of surprising, you know. Do
you think sports that were around for hundreds of years would have?
Right. Well, and especially because in all honesty, let's be purely honest here. A lot of athletic sports, think about like in football, how much they're blowing up these ideas of females on the coaching staff, on the training staff, all that stuff. Like they're making a huge deal out of it, which I understand and I respect that they are, because you want to get it out there so women can see like, look, we can do these jobs too. Don't let the men count us out. But it's also kind of a slap in the face to these leagues, because it's like it's 2020 and you're just now doing it. Like you're showing us all this female on the coaching staff, but it's like, really, you're showing us this and it's your first one and it's 2020. So it's almost a little embarrassing when they kind of flaunt it. And then you got an esport that's just like, boom, women are right here in power positions for these organizations. And I'm going to be honest with you. If you were going to tell me I could be a GM of any sport, I think esports has got to be one of the hardest places to be a GM for an organization. I know your rosters aren't nearly as big as like athletic sports, but I mean, like an Overwatch League, you know how difficult it would be making those decisions of what guys you're going to play when you don't know, you don't know metas, you don't know.
To balance metas, teams, and languages.
I know. I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into this. I couldn't imagine trying to be a general manager in general for an esport. And now and then we're seeing that the women are, there's more women GMs in Overwatch League than there are any other sport. All the other athletic sports combined.
North American, anyway.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because I don't know anything about other countries' sports.
Yeah, I don't know, like soccer and stuff like that. Like,
but I do. I think that's a very interesting thing that I read, and kudos to them. I don't want your job, and I hope you do well. It's very interesting to me. So I think the other thing that I think, I don't know exactly what all you wanted to discuss here. But for me, the thing that I'm most excited about with Overwatch at this moment in time is the Reinhardt Buff. The Reinhardt Buff went live.
I know. I'm literally looking at it. Reinhardt Buff went live. Damage increased.
And man, did my internet make you look ugly. You are all blocky right now. But man, Reinhardt Buff, man, that's a big deal. Ryan hasn't gotten much love in a long time. And that makes me, but see, this is what's interesting. This is what I was thinking about with this. So they buff Ryan, and I would say that Reinhardt is a fan favorite. Reinhardt is probably the most popular tank and top 5 characters in the game. Popularity. Reinhardt being buffed means he's going to be good and playable, presumably. Which means all of these people that love Reinhardt are going to get back on and play. I want to get on and play ranked matches as Reinhardt because it's been so long since Reinhardt was truly good. Yeah, so and he's doing more damage. So it's like, it makes me want to get on and play. But the way Overwatch League does nerfs and buffs has a lot to do with play rate. So his play rate is going to shoot up because you have a very popular character good. And that just doesn't seem right to me, because he's just going to get buffed. He's going to get nerfed right back down because they're going to say, look at how much he's being played. He's being played at every rank. And it may not be because he's overpowered. It may just be because he's a popular character and you made him good again. I mean,
that's what happened with Genji.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Genji got good for a week and then got nerfed right back into the ground.
But the thing with Genji though is he wasn't nerfed back into the ground. He's been he's actually had a really good spot, I think, he's still used in the Overwatch League It was just when they re-nerfed him, it was the end of the year, and they couldn't really. Teams couldn't
Right.
risk it. They had to go with Ash.
It's just interesting though. I'm scared that they're going
They're trying to find a good spot for him because right now he's out of the league.
Well, and so here's the other thing. So I was reading. So before this buff came across, are you aware of what the current tank meta being played is?
No.
So in contenders and stuff like that, they are playing Sigma Ball. That is
I knew Ball has been crazy.
The current meta is Sigma Ball. Those to me are not main tanks at all, and you've got a problem if those are your two main tanks. Like those are your tanks being played. Now I did see someone tweet, and now don't get me wrong, because Overwatch League and Overwatch in general is about as toxic as it gets. And someone said, "Man, I love playing Sigma Ball. I realized I love playing Sigma Ball meta. I have not watched any I have not seen any Sigma Balls meta played. I haven't watched anything lately, so I don't know if Sigma Balls is a good meta to watch. It doesn't sound like it would be that enjoyable to watch. But I'm happy, and I would love to see Reinhardt back. And I think we both said we would like to see Reinhardt back.
But then it's going to bring a double shield of Ryan Sigma.
It could. But they also buffed Diva.
No, I don't think they buffed her. They moved her health and armor, and they made it, instead of 200 400, they made it 300 300. So she can now regen her armor.
So that is kind of a buff.
It is a small buff, but it's not a gained 50 health and added 10.
No. I'm definitely not putting Diva in the same category as Reinhardt as far as getting buffed. But she was already still sort of played. Diva still had her roles, and maybe we go back to a Rein Diva type comp, because Baptiste also got nerfed, which could change up who you play on support. Which that's the part that a lot of people don't realize is so tough about games like Overwatch. So Overwatch is so team-based that everyone thinks it's as simple as you just need to nerf this character. You just need to buff this character and then the game would be great. Well, when I nerf Baptiste, it now takes other characters and makes them less usable. You don't realize how a buff or nerf completely changes how the other characters around you are meta.
Yeah, or how nerfing one character can make another OP.
Right, and that's
like changing one character can all of a sudden make another character that wasn't OP all of a sudden highly OP.
Right, and that's what's always tough is, everyone thinks it's as simple as just nerf that guy, he's too strong. But it's like, they're only that strong in that meta. I mean, if you're playing, a super aggressive style, then slower characters aren't meta. The slower characters can't keep up in a super aggressive meta. It's just so you don't think about that stuff when people, when everyone, it's so funny because everyone wants to say this character broke the game. The big one that's very vocal is everyone wants to say that Brig broke the game. When Brig came into the game became broken. But then it's funny because all the time in the comments, I see Ball broke the game. I see Sigma broke the game. I see Orisa broke the game. Or nobody broke the game and you just need to grow up and play it as is. Or if you don't like it, guess what? Play something else. I mean, it's kind of that simple. I think that in general, I think that we've gotten so used to just saying everything's broken that something has to be broken. And just because you had a bad night of playing against a bunch of people with Ball, or you had a bunch of people on your team that played Ball, doesn't mean that Ball is broken. It could just be the people you're playing with or against that are just playing the game in a way that sucks.
I don't think Ball's broken at all. I think Ball's actually...
But you'd be surprised how many times I see Ball as a character that people say is broken and should be removed from the game.
Because I feel like a lot of what low-level Balls do...
Spin to win.
Is they just bait, dude.
Oh,
And
well,
when I
then
say
that's
bait, I mean they just feed.
they feed so
They feed,
hard
and then
because they have a huge
and they get
amount of
away
health,
with like 100 health, but they didn't do that much damage.
and
And
all
then
they
now
did was
all of a
feed
sudden,
ult. Yep.
I gained 38% of my ult, and I didn't even do anything.
Right.
I didn't even walk in a team fight
I definitely see that.
at lower level.
But it's just
Oh
like,
god dang! It's also hard to kill a ball when you're
well,
certain.
and it's like, all right, so here we go. You're a guy who likes to dabble. How hard is it to play Doomfist?
Doomfist is a character that, for bad players, for low-level players, is a more difficult player to play, and that's why you don't see him at the lower levels. But you can see him dominate high levels because he's
So
higher.
Doomfist is
He's
another
a
guy,
higher skilled.
another guy I see all the time that people say he should be removed from the game.
Yep.
Or you just learn how to counter people better. Because when I play low rank games, guess who I hate playing against? I hate playing against Bastion, I hate playing against Symmetra, and I hate playing against Torb. Mostly because I feel like they don't take any skill. But also, those characters are extremely hard at our rank to counter because people are not coordinated enough to counter those picks.
Yeah, we suck.
We do suck. But on the flip side, maybe the people complaining about playing Doomfist, maybe you suck. Maybe you suck at countering Doomfist and you need to work on how can I play my character better to counter this Doomfist. You know, I think that everyone thinks they take this mindset that we just need to remove characters instead of them just learning to counter a character or learning to play.
If you remove a lot of characters, it's what's it going to do is all of a sudden you're going to say, "Oh man, friggin' I'm looking at the characters right now. Now all of a sudden, the second you remove some characters, you're gonna be like, Tracer's too OP. Tracer's too OP. You got to remove it from the game. And then all of a sudden you're like, well, Tracer gets removed, and that means a character like D.Va doesn't have as much as like passive damage being put on her, and it's like, well, now D.Va's OP. She's not taking enough damage. You got to remove it from the game. And then all of a sudden you're left with Ryan v. Ryan, which I would love.
Well, and so what's also interesting though about that is we want to remove pretty much every character from the game. That's just the mindset. We want to remove everybody, but then we want to, but then we want to complain. We want to complain that they're not producing characters fast enough. We're not producing. They haven't released a character in this long. Well, you haven't stopped bitching about the ones they made. So do you want them to make a character, or do you want them to, do you want them to keep tweaking characters every 10 seconds because you're not happy with the current meta?
Yeah, it's like, oh my god, Doom's OP, Briggs OP.
I'm a firm believer.
You're out here like Ryan hasn't been used in months because
I am a firm believer that if you are not in the top, whatever, I don't know the percent, but let's go 10. Let's say top 10%. I don't know how accurate this is, but for the sake of the discussion, if you're not in the top 10%, the meta doesn't matter. Because if you are not in that top 10%, if I play a really, 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 really good soldier, but the meta is Reaper, it does me no good to play Reaper if I'm not good at him. But if you see it all the time. You hear about it all the time.
I got out of the lowest of low ranks because even though Soldier's never been meta, I was just so good at like characters like Soldier and McCree a long time ago. Now I just don't play the game as much. But I was really good at a meta character and a non-meta character that I was able to just fly out of these low ranks because I was just so much better than everybody. It didn't matter who I played.
And I was
so good.
That's what's interesting because if you actually pay attention, the people that aren't complaining all the time will make little comments like how there's a Junkrat one trick in GM. They're in Grandmasters as a Junkrat one trick. Okay, well, Junkrat hasn't been meta in so long I can't even handle it. So obviously he or she are so good at Junkrat that it doesn't matter what the meta is. And that's what I'm getting at is if you are actually good at a character, if you are actually good, it doesn't matter what the meta is. And if you're not good enough with a character to hard carry your team, then either A, you're not that good, or B, you're just not that much better than the people you're playing with, which means you're probably at the correct rank. Just saying.
Yeah.
I mean, it frustrates me. And here's the thing. I see it on all video games. Every single video game, it is just filled with people complaining about the game they play. And I just don't understand, how is it fun to play when all you do is complain?
Yep.
I just don't get it. I am interested. I hope that Reinhardt stays strong for Overwatch League, though.
We've always been good at not playing games we hate after a while. We did a really good job of quitting Call of Duties when all we did was play Call of Duties.
We don't force ourselves to play something we don't enjoy just because it's the thing.
Exactly. Like, just because me and Brandon want to play Minecraft forever doesn't mean you guys all stay on.
A really good
Destiny doesn't mean any of us play Destiny.
A really good example, actually, is CSGO. You and Nick, and for a while Josh, love CSGO. You guys love it and always have loved it, and you're not tremendously good at it, but you still love it. Where myself has never really enjoyed it, but I've played it sometimes to play with friends, but I don't play it often. I play it every now and then just to play with friends. I get my fill in, realize I don't like it, and I don't force myself to play it. Brandon has gone back and forth on whether or not he likes it. But what I'm getting at here is, it would be like what most of these people seem to do is how I feel about CSGO. And then if I made myself play it for 4 hours every single day,
because it's the popular game.
Because it's the popular game, that's what these people are doing.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, like you said, I've been playing Destiny. I play Destiny 2 quite a bit right now. I'm really enjoying getting into it. On everything that's posted about Destiny 2, there's people complaining that there's not enough content, there's not this, they're not releasing new weapons, blah, 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 blah. As a casual person who plays a couple hours a day, maybe an hour here and there, I absolutely love the content. I don't feel like I'm swimming and not keeping up with people playing. I feel like I'm still getting stuff that is coming out new. I don't feel like I'm way behind. So I'm constantly having fun. I'm sorry that you grind the game 12 hours a day and there's not enough for you to do, but your casual player that only plays an hour, 2 hours, there's plenty of stuff in a lot of these games. Overwatch, if I play for an hour or 2 hours every now and then, I have an absolute blast no matter what the meta is. I stop having fun as soon as I try to take it seriously.
I can tell you that devs don't give a shit about your top 3% that are saying there's not enough content in a game that has more content you even know what to deal with.
Well, and that's what's funny too.
And I'm not saying that in a way where I'm just like, the Destiny devs are bad. No, why should they give a shit about the top 1% or 2% when everybody else can't handle the amount of content? But you have this like 2%
and honestly,
of players
when you say that, games like World of Warcraft, even Destiny for a while, the biggest reason I couldn't get into them is because I felt like there was so much stuff that I would have to make up that it wasn't worth even getting started. I would sit down and say, man, there's so much stuff to make up, I don't even want to play. Overwatch, for me, when I can just hop in some quick plays every now and then, I have an absolute blast playing it. And I don't complain about anything other than, just casual, I'm complaining because I'm playing a video game.
No, you bitch about Symmetra.
So my only complaint about Symmetra, here's my only complaint.
You really don't complain about, I'm going to be honest to everyone listening, he doesn't really complain about any other character. I mean, he'll make complaints.
I hate the idea. I hate the idea that I died from something that all you did was put it on a wall. I cannot stand when I walk past a wall and all 3 turrets start beaming me and I have to decide, do I want to block the damage from the team all shooting at me, or do I want to turn and remove these turrets and die from the team? Either way, I'm screwed, but the one killing me from behind took absolutely no skill. You just placed him on the wall. I cannot stand, and everyone wants to say, oh, Brig takes no skill. Brig, at least I still have to position right, and I still have to I have to make plays happen. Symmetra's turrets, you stick them on a wall and you walk away. The rest of Symmetra takes skill. Don't get me wrong. Symmetra, the other part of her, still takes some skill. Her turrets piss me off more than anything else. Torb's turret makes me mad, but it is an easier turret to destroy. But in general, I'm not a big fan of people getting things that they don't have to control and do themselves. That's my stand on that stuff. That's what frustrates me, is if the player themselves is not in control, it's not fair.
So you're saying, like, A Moira is high skill, is what you're telling me.
I'm not saying Moira's high skill, but I'm saying
It's
Moira.
low skill.
Oh, actually, okay, so Moira is actually a very classic example for me. Moira, yes, you have the positioning skill, but her right click or whatever has so much range on it. Her
right
whichever.
Click, yeah. You're right.
Her right click has so much range on it. All she has to do is just be looking in the general area of you, and she's doing massive damage to you.
Free gold.
I think Moira needs a rework to be more healing based. And I think you should have to heal your teammates to do damage. Flip it. You have to keep your teammates alive in order to be able to do damage. Then we'll see. I think that Moira in general, I'm not a big fan of how little skill she takes, but she is similar to Winston, but Winston doesn't have the range that she does.
I really
but my frustration with her is the fact that they've made her basically she is the I want a DPS for my team, but I don't want to wait in DPS queue times.
So that's the thing that sucks about Moira is Moira actually is an incredibly good healer and is good at like when you get in groups because you can just spam your left click. But the issue is the ranks we play, it's just DPS Moiras. And I actually don't really have as much problems with Moira anymore as I
don't have a ton either.
Because they decrease the range of her damage. But I do see how it can be frustrating. But the other day I was playing, I actually played a damage Moira in a comp, and we rolled because they had one healer.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree. And I think Moira has gotten better. But I do know that there have been times that I'm frustrated. I'm like, I'm not even close to you. How are you killing me? Like,
I have no problem with the right click. My problem is the balls.
Oh my god, the ball is frustrating. I think the ball kind of falls back into that I didn't really do anything. I just shot it down the hallway, and especially like when you're unfortunately somebody like Tracer with like 150 health.
Yep.
You get murdered by that thing.
Or an Ana who can't heal themselves unless you nade yourself.
Or even have the mobility to get out of the way. Like you really have nowhere to go. Like Zenyatta. Zenyatta gets murdered by that thing. He has no mobility, no self-heal.
But he does have a self-heal because his armor.
Right, but that's only that's only part of his health though. I mean, he's
150 of his 200.
Yeah, but so it's like if you can't, but you have to get away though, and Zenyatta's about as slow as it gets.
Oh yeah, no, I know what you're saying, but like the reason why I brought up Ana is she can't heal herself unless she wastes her nade, which can be a game, which can be big time when you nade your tanks, and then it increases their healing properties from not just you, but from the Lucio or the Mercy or whatever that's also healing them, so they just heal really fast, and all of a sudden you have an advantage in the team fight. You have to waste your nade on yourself, and then it's just a big deal. I've been playing a lot of Ana recently because I just like to watch her play, and I like to play, and I like to know that, yes, you're not going to finish with gold healing really ever, but you can be a game-changing team fight as that character by getting a clutch sleep on a tank with their shield down, or hitting a fat nade on 3 and being able to take 1 or 2 of them. So
yeah, or the classic troll where you sleep like Tracer and then kill her. You know, you get that.
You
lucky.
Sleep Tracer, you nade, shoot, punch, and just embarrass her.
That's always funny too. All right. So, did you have any remarks about Overwatch League? I know I kind of took over and ranted about all kinds of things there.
Yeah, you went pretty hard in the Overwatch. No, I don't really know much about the Overwatch League right now.
It's been slow right now. I'm excited once the season. Once the season gets started, it's going to be a lot more interesting.
Because I watch so much Overwatch, but I just don't. I need to get better with the names, and I got better last year, and I'll be better this year. The off season is definitely not my time.
Well, in the offseason,
playing the game, I've had a blast. I got on and played some DPS, played some healer support, and placed in gold in both. I think I don't remember, but because we're both low level characters, me and Jason are. And I had a blast doing it the whole time. I mean, you run into bad games where you get pissed off because the game just sucks, and you get bad teammates, and that happens, you know. What I've always heard good players say is you're going to win 2 games that didn't matter what you do, and you're going to lose 2 games that didn't matter what you do. You got to try to be the difference in the 6. And by either be comms or team play or whatever it is, you got to learn to be the difference in the 6, and that's how you become better. And that's true because there's some games I'm like, man, I didn't do friggin' anything, and we rolled. Or I die instantly and we win the team fight anyway. It's like, shit.
Or you know what? That's always embarrassing too. Like when you're playing, and you're like, God, dude, I'm carrying this team. Like, why aren't we winning? And then you die, and then all of a sudden you look, and your whole team won the team fight without you, and you're like, dang, dude, I really thought I was a bigger part of this team than I am because we just won without me.
Yeah, it means
I
you
thought I was
playing
carrying.
Right.
Yeah, I mean it is. It's humbling.
If
you self-reflect when you play, it's humbling how you're not as good as you think you are.
Yeah, you have to really look at just deaths. I mean, if you're ever like 6-5, you're playing the game wrong, right? I mean, you shouldn't be doing that. And
either that or you're just on the team that can't finish any kills.
But that's a part of those 2 games. You got to realize that too. That's a part of those 2. You have to be the difference in the 6, and you got to realize what those games are, and you got to be able to self-reflect on. Fuck, I was out of position. I should not have died there. The only reason I died was because I was out of position, or I went for a big flank, or I went for the big ult play, or whatever. All of a sudden someone asked me what time it was, and I ripped out it's high noon, and I died because I wasn't behind a shield.
Someone asked me,
McCree, what time is it? What time is it? Now that happened the other day when I was playing.
That's funny.
It was pretty funny. He's like, McCree, what time is it? And I jumped out because I knew what he was getting at. It's high noon. And I got my ult off, and I only shot like my first bullet and killed somebody, but then someone killed me.
Classic.
Yeah, it was pretty fun. It was pretty funny, though. Everyone had a good time.
All right, so I think with that being said, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up this week. Thank you so much for watching. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that sub. On Spotify, you can follow the podcast so you get updates when we re-release. This is released as a full podcast on YouTube. On Spotify, I will split it up, and then I do eventually split it up on YouTube. It just takes a while. These videos are long. They take a while to upload on YouTube. I don't always get around to it, and then sometimes I feel like they're so outdated by the time I would that I don't get there. But I always get the full podcast on YouTube, and we always get it split up on the other podcasting sites. We appreciate your guys' support, and we will see you next time.
Bye.